There are lots of ways to make selections in ArcMap. This can be done using select by attribute, so something based on a value in a table, or it can be done using select by location, which is done based on the geography of it. And the really fun thing is you can actually mix and match between the two. So let me show you a little bit about how each of those works. Here I have some restaurant points for the City of Toronto, as well as some population density values I've made into a choropleth using census tracts. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to Selection, Select by Attributes, and I'm going to select some restaurants based on the name. So I can build a query, as this is basically what we're doing. A more formal term for a selection is a query. And you'll see that we have different parts of this dialog box here. So the layer that I'm going to select from is listed up here. I could use different ones. These are the fields that are available in that layer or that feature class. So we have object ID, which you wouldn't normally select based on the name of the restaurant and the address of the restaurant. Then we have this sort of almost like a calculator keypad here with some different operators that are available to us. And then down here we have this statement where it's already filled in part of it for us, saying select something from restaurant. That's the name of the feature class up here. Where, and that where means that, okay, so I'm going to put in some constraints or some criteria that will fill in or populate the rest of that query, and then I will test the data set to see which of those values inside the table, or in this case based on attributes, which of those meet the criteria. Those will be basically marked as true. The other ones that don't meet the criteria will be false, and the ones that are true will be selected. So that's basically how it works. Esri's made it pretty straightforward to do. You can just double click on a field and it automatically puts it down here in my query box. And then I can say equals. I just clicked on that operator there. And then if I'm not sure what value I'm looking for, I can actually say get unique values. And in this case, there's a lot of values in this data set, but it will go through and list all of the possibilities in terms of names that I could use in my selection. So for example, if I'll just sort of pick one at random here. Let's pick, what would be good? Jerry's. Yeah, sure, why not? And so my query now says name equals Jerry's. And you'll notice that, actually this is probably a good example, is that we've got an apostrophe in the middle, that's okay. And then we've got single quotes around the word Jerry's to denote that that's part of my query. Okay, that's all there is to it. So I'm going to find all of the entries in my attribute table where the name column equals Jerry. So I can just say apply. And if I go down here and select show selected records, well, it turns out there's only one restaurant in all of Toronto named Jerry's, and I have found it. Hooray, yay me. Okay, so that's it. That's all there is to selecting by attribute. There's lots of variations on this. There's different operators that can be used, but that's the basic idea. You have a field name, an operator, and a value. And so you have to figure out what combination of those you want to use. Is it one field? Is it multiple fields? Do you want to have one value or many values? There's lots of different ways to, to mix and match things. But this is essentially the idea behind doing a select by attribute. I can clear my selection here. Now I could do a select by attribute on my census tract. So for example, if I'm interested in finding areas with certain density values, I could say density greater than, and then I could say get all the unique values here. We can look through these and say, let's look for areas that are fairly high density. Let's say greater than 5,000. Okay, so I'm using a different operator now. I say apply. And so now this is selecting all of the census tract polygons in my data set that have an attribute. If I go to my census tract attribute table here and show selected records, these are all the census tracts in Toronto that have a population density. So I chose density up here. I'm saying density greater than 5,000. So this is my density field here. And all of the values that are selected meet the criteria that are greater than 5,000. That's all that works there. That's how it works. Now we can try doing a select by location. And this is where you can have some fun with things. If we say select by location, I'll move this over on this side, let's say. I can select features from, I'm going to select restaurants that are related to this source layer, which is census tracts here. And what I'm going to try and get it to do here is I'm going to select all of the restaurants that are inside the census tracts, but obviously all of them are inside census tracts. So I'm going to make it so that it's only inside the selected census tracts. And what that will do is identify for me all of the restaurants that are in the high population density areas. So I've selected restaurants. That's the target layer. That's the one I'm going to do the selection on. The source layer is the census tracts. That's what's being used to help me do the selection. And I'm going to check this box here that says Use Selected Features. And then I'm going to choose a spatial operator as opposed to an attribute operator. So here, there's lots of different options here, are within a distance of, completely contain, and so on. And so what I want to find are restaurants that are completely within census tracts, but just the census tracts that I've already selected. And if I click Apply, you'll see that it's chosen or selected all of the restaurants that are inside these selected census tracts. So I tried to wrap a couple of different ideas into that demonstration there. One is that you can use spatial operators to say things like, find all the points that are inside certain polygons. That could be all the polygons in a feature class, but what I wanted to show you as a second option, or things that you can do, is that you can have two different selections that are active at the same time. So I have a selection of the census tracts that I've already made, and then I'm going to do another selection and use that first selection as part of my second selection. And this can seem a little complicated at first, but I assure you that if you get used to doing this, it's incredibly efficient and useful, and it's a quick way to be able to narrow things down very easily and quickly and efficiently. So if I go back to my restaurant attribute table, I've already got it so that it's showing just the selected values. And so these are all of the restaurants that are in high population density areas based on the criteria that I use. Now, we could go back and say, well, you know what? Maybe 5,000 is not high enough. Maybe I want to make it 10,000. I can apply that again. And so now, actually, let me just clear this first. So I'm going to start over again. I'm going to choose the census tracts now. There's much fewer of them that are in the highest density areas that are greater than 10,000. And then I can go back to my select by location and just reapply exactly the same thing again. And so now I've very quickly isolated areas that are in an area that are with a population density higher than 10,000. So the whole idea here is I want you to be able to experiment with this, play with it, see what you're looking for. Maybe you're not sure what a threshold population density value would be, and so you can try things like this and look at where they end up. So is it just the downtown area? Is there other pockets of high population? And so this is just a nice way of being able to show, I hope, that you can use select by attribute, you can use select by location, and you can mix and match between the two depending on what it is that you're looking for.